You know, it's funny. The leaders that I work with, the ones who have the most presence, the ones with the clearest decision-making frameworks, the ones with the strongest teams, aren't the ones obsessing over the latest leadership trends. They're not the ones who want a new framework every 5 minutes. They're the ones who've mastered simple habits that have nothing to do with business. They have nothing to do with leadership, or so it seems. And they have everything to do with becoming the person who other people want to naturally follow. And I was thinking about this because I've been reading a lot about your habits behind closed doors. There's tons of habit books, Atomic Habits, Terry Saville Foy. I love hers, like 5 things before 8 a.m. Yeah, it's 5 things leaders do before 8 a.m. or something. I'll find the exact name of the book for you. But I was thinking about these because the thing is, when it comes to purpose, when it comes to self-awareness, when it comes to emotional intelligence, it's not the in the moment that matters. It's not what people see that really does build the leadership or build the leadership aura or presence that you're looking for. And I was thinking about this because I love trees. I love them. We actually have 20 that we put in our front yard a few years ago, and watching them grow has been so amazing. Some haven't survived, but most have. And I think about it. So here we're into fall, where the leaves are starting to turn colors. And the few of them that we have that turn colors, they're definitely starting to lose their leaves and starting to hibernate, starting to look more dead. They're not dead, right? But it's fall. Things are starting to not be as beautiful. We've got the leaves and things, but one of the things I was thinking is like how much trees, how can you use those? How can you really, how can a tree represent your leadership? And I wanted to talk about the underground root system because most of us think that leadership is really the visible parts, like the branches, they're the strategy, the leaves are the tactics, the fruit, the results, right? We crave the fruit or that comes from the trees. But the real strength comes from what you can't see. It's the root system underground. It is what's happening behind the scenes. It's what it's doing the invisible work that a tree is doing. Even I read an article a couple of years ago about how the root systems in forests actually talk to each other. Even the different types of trees, all the roots talk to each other and will send nutrients and help to the trees that need it, the areas that need it, the type of tree that needs more water or in drier times. And then the ones that are closer to the rivers or it can send the water through the root system. And so I was really thinking about it because it's the invisible part that most people forget to build. That we see it, we innately know it, that roots are the most important part of the tree. If we don't have a good root system, a strong wind, and we live in Oklahoma, so we got some strong winds, and the tree's over. A storm, even too much water, and the tree without good root system to take in the water and to use it, the tree can die. And so while everyone else is trying to grow bigger branches, I really want you to think about building deeper roots. And so I was looking at some ideas. What are some of the common habits? What are some of the common themes that happen with leaders who are true leaders, like built leaders, not just one and done, or they don't just have a luck sometimes. Like they are intentional leaders and they are intentionally growing their leadership, their presence, their situational awareness, their self-awareness, and their emotional intelligence. And so in fun fashion, I was thinking about these trees. I thought about these 5 habits, and it spells out roots. And there are 5 habits that are your root system that really help you build the leadership, build the purpose and your identity as a leader, not just a skill, not just a soft skill, not just a in the moment. It's things that you can do behind the scenes to really become the leader you want to be. And so these 5 things are things that are consistent across the board. They're ones that I know many leaders attribute their success 2. And I thought it was important because these are not things that you would think that would build the leadership within you, build self-awareness, build emotional intelligence. And they're things that you have to do behind the scenes. The most powerful leaders that I know have the most boring habits. I am working on boring habits, on these daily things that really you don't think that they will get you much, but we know that it's the small, consistent steps. I was listening to, they said, okay, would you ask a guy if you would like $1 million right now or 1 penny today, compounded double over the next 30 days or something. And most people were like, I want the $1 million instead of the penny. But it's the compound that really, if you look at the math and that 1 penny compounded doubled each day, I think it was something like $10 million at the end of 30 days or something. Don't quote me. I didn't do the math. I wasn't. But you can see that it still would be better. It's the slow, steady rhythms, and it's the boring habits that really get us to be the leaders that we want to be. The leaders that we don't have to worry about what room we walk into and if it will work, because we're so certain about our foundation that we know that we can trust our habits. We can trust ourselves, which is the T in roots, but we'll get there in a moment. So let's talk about them first. Like the R is rhythm, like how you structure your days. O is ownership, how you handle mistakes. Take ownership for the good things and the mistakes. The second O is observation, how you see yourself and others. T is trust, how you keep your commitments to yourself. And then S is stillness, how you process and decide. And so let's talk about these. So rhythm, you schedule recovery like you schedule meetings. You schedule downtime and realize that rest is not the opposition to productivity. It's actually a partner to it. You may be thinking like, I don't have time to rest, or you may be Googling how to have more energy as a leader. By scheduling recovery like you do schedule meetings. So the habit is protecting your non-negotiable recovery time with the same intensity you protect your client calls. You protect your leadership meetings, your staff meetings. And this builds leadership because leaders who burn out lose their edge. Leaders who become exhausted, people follow energy, not exhaustion. They don't want to follow someone who looks like they are run ragged. They don't want to follow someone who looks like they are on the edge of a breakdown. I was watching The Diplomat, I think it's on Netflix, and Carrie Russell, she was being told about her appearance. And it just reminded me that your recovery, how you take care of yourself matters. Now, it shouldn't be our main focus. Like our self-care is important, but we don't need to wear certain things, or we don't need to put on a persona that's not ours. But we do need to recover. We need to schedule our recovery like we schedule meetings. Schedule your downtime and protect it. Protect it like it is an appointment with yourself. And so the next is ownership. You apologize without explaining. This one's hard for me because even if I'm apologizing and I want to, and it's a heartfelt apology, there's still times that I want to explain why I did what I did. And so you might be thinking, like, I need to make sure they understand it wasn't really my fault, or I had good intentions. But the thing is, when you mess up and you say I was wrong, and just stop talking. Just stop. Even with teenagers, even with spouses and friends, you don't have to explain yourself. Just, I was wrong, and stop talking. And this builds your leadership, because nothing builds trust faster than a leader who can be wrong without being defensive. When you start to explain, then all of a sudden you start to justify, and it starts to feel that apology is actually diminished because you're trying to explain to them why you're right, which is the whole purpose, like the antithesis of the apology in the first place. So apologize without explaining. Just say, I'm sorry, and stop talking. Give them time to talk. This next one's big. Observation. You notice your patterns without judging them. Stop judging yourself. Just look at your patterns, look at your habits as information. It will help you make the changes you need. And so you might be thinking, or you might be Googling, like, why do I keep reacting the same way? Or why do I keep making the same mistakes? The thing is, you understand, okay, what happened before, what happened during, what was my thought process, and just start to notice the patterns, and you're going to see why. So the habit here is weekly pattern review weekly pattern review where you notice without fixing. Just gather information. Because this builds your leadership, because self-aware leaders make different choices. And you can't lead others well if you can't see yourself. If you're not strategically looking at your patterns, your habits, your reactions, your responses, if you don't know why you do what you do, it's really hard to make a change. And I know that a lot of mindset coaches are like, just think different or have an abundance mindset. That's good in theory. The thing is, this is one of the first steps you need to do is just understand your patterns. I talk a lot about ants. If you don't have an ant journal going, then that's something that maybe I need to talk about again soon, is talking about your automatic negative thoughts, because those patterns help us understand why we make the choices, why we're making these decisions, and why we don't want them. And so just the second O is observation. You notice your patterns without judging them. Just gather the information, get curious and understand them, and then you can make a better choice. So T, trust. Keep small promises to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to get up and go work out, if you say you're going to eat an extra vegetable, if you say you're going to call a friend, if you say you're going to rest and recover, do it. Your leadership is only as strong as your relationship with yourself. And I'm sure you're thinking, because I know that I do a lot, is I always start strong, but I never follow through. So I want you to think about making and keeping tiny commitments to yourself daily. One of the things that I wanted to do is before I start working, then I have a quiet time beforehand. Now, I took a lot of my rules. I want to spend an hour in the Bible. Of course, I want to spend a lot of time. But if it's one verse, I'm still keeping a promise to myself. And that promise builds on itself. There's a lot of things there's a whole book from an admiral talking about why you should make your bed first thing you get up. Because those small promises to yourself, those small wins, help you get to the big wins. And this builds your trust, because if you can't trust yourself, why should anyone else? And if we can't trust ourselves, how are we going to trust anyone else ourselves? And so try making tiny, that don't put a lot of rules on it. I talked a few weeks ago about my 2-day rule, about my 2 days. I never skip the gym 2 days in a row. I'm someone who does when I have goals, when I have patterns, I make sure I don't miss the gym 2 days in a row, or I don't miss my steps 2 days in a row. That gives me a little freedom, but also it buys into and plays into my identity. Because if I miss, yesterday, I drove all day. My daughter and I just got back from Nashville, and we drove all day. And so I didn't get steps in. And so knowing that, yet last night I went on a walk trying to make sure that I'd hit my step goal. And then also today, I know that I needed to go to the gym. So I did. So I made sure that small promise to myself is I don't miss 2 days in a row. There's something that allowed me, because now that I have freedom, now that I have the grace of it's okay to miss something, but I'm not the one who misses 2 days in a row, I'm able to keep more small promises to myself. So remember that your leadership is only as strong as your relationship with yourself. So build that relationship, build that trust. And then the S in roots is stillness. Think about what you're thinking about. Sit with the questions before you answer them. This goes to, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. It is about slowing down. You don't need to respond to everything immediately, even a phone call. And this, you may be thinking, why do I need to respond to everything immediately? Or why do I have decision fatigue? If it's not, and a habit you can build for this one is a 24-hour rule. If it's not urgent, give yourself 24 hours to make the decision. Think about it, mull it over, allow yourself to think about it from different angles. Allow your gut to catch up with your heart, to catch up with your brain. You need to make those decisions with your whole body not just whichever intelligence center that you are familiar with. Me being a gut person, I typically have a gut reaction, but I need to think about it and I need to sit with it in my heart as well. And how do I feel about it? And when you embrace stillness, and this is in addition to recovery, this is in addition to keeping promises to yourself, and observing your patterns and your ownership. Stillness and margin needs to be added. I love the book. It's called The Road Less Stupid. If you haven't read it, you should. And what I want you to do, I have a chair that I go and I will sit in for 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes if I'm lucky, it'll be more. But sit and think about questions. Just ponder them. And don't force a response or a reaction or even an answer. And this builds your leadership because reactive leaders create chaos. Responsive leaders create clarity. And that is our ultimate goal, is when we bring clarity to the room we're in, when we bring clarity to the teams and to the projects, to the outcomes we want, others can get on board faster and they will follow you. They will be more likely, even if they don't understand, because they feel that energy that you know what you're doing, that you've taken the time, that you're not a reactive leader, but you're more responsive, that you've thought it through and that you're not in a hurry. So I want you to think about these, because these 5 things, they're not productivity hacks. They're identity builders. They're leadership builders. And we start to build the roots of our identity. And just like trees, if we don't have a strong root system, we cannot withstand the seasons. We can't withstand the storms. We can't withstand the droughts or the abundance of water. We can't withstand the environment we're in. And so this is why it's important to build our identity from the inside out. And so you may have tried leadership books, you may have courses, and you might have even done coaching. But if you still feel like you're performing leadership instead of embodying it, it's because most of the leadership development focuses on what you do, not who you're becoming. And so I want you to focus on these habits because they change who you are, which changes how you lead. It is, we think that once we have, then we do, and then we get to be. And it's really opposite. We get to become the leader, and we get to do the habits, and then we get to have the impact and the influence. And so these habits change who you are and change how you lead. So changing from the inside out allows us to build that foundation that I talk about that will withstand any change, any storm, anything that comes our way. We're able to respond to it instead of react. We're able to take it and the chaos, we can set down the chaos and we can pull through to see what we need. What do we need answers to now? And this idea of seeing with strategic clarity, we talk about this, and this is one of the biggest steps in the framework that I use, my SHINE framework, because these habits build self-awareness foundation. And if you want emotional intelligence, you need to start with self-awareness. And then it lends itself to the actions of emotional intelligence. And so here's a challenge for you. Is I want you to think about these 5 habits. And let me tell you what they are again. They are rhythm, ownership, observation, trust, and stillness. I don't want you to pick all 5 of them yet. I want you to pick for a week or 2. I want you to pick one of them because I don't want you to be, if we try to implement it all, if we try to do all of those, a lot of times overwhelm takes over and then we start spinning. And so that's not what I want for you. I want you to look and see, is it a rhythm that you want to add? Is it stillness? Do you need to sit and just observe some of your habits? Pick one, whichever one you think you want to start with. And it doesn't matter, any of those. They're not, though I put them in that order because it spells out roots and it's cute and it's easy to remember. And it gives us that visual of what we're actually building. So I want you to pick one and commit. I'd like you to commit for 30 days, but if you can commit for a week, start there. Again, small, so that way we can build stronger. And I want you to, which of these 5 habits would change your leadership most if you mastered it? So ask yourself that and then pick it and go for at least a week. But I want you to try that one habit for 30 days. And then I want you to share with how these habits have become, how they connect to your identity of the leader that you want to become. I want you to share, send me a DM on LinkedIn or an Instagram send me an email, Tami@TamiMarieCoaching.com. LinkedIn is at Tami Imlay, TamiImlay, or Instagram at Tami Marie Coaching. And let's chat about like how your leadership identity is shifting. And so this again, though this is a leadership podcast, that I really want you to grow your leadership, grow your impact and your influence, and really lean into your legacy that you're leaving. And that's not just for your family, but even if you change jobs, like what are people going to say about you as you leave? And how are you growing other leaders around you? So a lot of the habits and the leadership strategies, they don't work well as human habits, but human habits will start to build your leadership. So I want you to think about this, and there's resistance that will come up. There's resistance, I promise you, but notice it. Observe it. Don't judge yourself for the resistance. Ask yourself why. And then I want you to just think about how these will affect your team. If you start to sit in stillness and you don't answer a question for a non-urgent question, say, I need 24 hours to think about it. How will that change the energy in your team? And how will that also give them the permission to start to clarify and to develop a really good response instead of giving that top of mind reaction? So again, this is not about adding more to your plate, because I actually think as leaders, we need to remove things from our plate. This is about becoming the person who naturally leads with clarity and conviction. This is about the leader your team needs isn't someone with better strategies. It's someone with deeper roots. And it starts with who you are when no one's watching. It's behind closed doors. It's the who you are at your core. It is the season of growth, of developing your root, that it grows stronger and sweeter fruit. The leaves are more plentiful. The tree is healthier and can withstand whether it's the storms, disease, drought, anything that's coming. They can withstand it more because of the root system they've developed. And that's the same for us, that these roots are not sexy. Like they're not, again, they're boring, and they are like, and a lot of times we're like, what's the point? No one can see them. I actually want to challenge that, because the leaders who I know, the leaders that I work with, when they build these behind closed door habits, those are the first things that their people notice. They notice an energy shift with them. They notice that that there's clarity. They're not as chaotic, that they're a lot more calm with things, that they're more centered, that they are not worried about when they walk in. There's more of a confidence with them. So if you're ready to stop performing leadership and start embodying it, then let's talk about how to build this internal framework that makes external success inevitable. Book your leadership strategy call at TamiMarieCoaching.com/call, and let's chat. And friends, I'm so thankful that you're here. And I don't want you to just listen to this podcast and think, oh, that would be a great idea. My hope is that every podcast you take one small thing. And that's one reason why I went down to 1 a week versus 2 a week, is because I want you to pick one thing and just try it. Start to implement it and start to shift who you are being. Because when it comes to leadership, information and skills, like that is plentiful. But your energy, your resolve, your conviction, your clarity, that's what's going to propel you. That's what's going to get you noticed. That's what people want in this chaotic world and how things are shifting so much. So I want you to really take these challenges. And in the show notes, there's a little bit more information. There's also a journal prompt as well, because I want you to be writing. I want you to be thinking about what you're thinking about. So challenge yourself to go into the show notes and get the journal prompt for the week, and also take the challenge. And this week's challenge was, remember, so one of the 5 things, which of these 5 habits would change your leadership the most if you mastered it? So pick one and commit for a week, but I'd really like you to commit for 30 days. And I'm going to do the same thing, because even as I remember, as I'm looking at these, and many of these I've built, but I haven't been protecting my recovery time. I've been fitting it in places, and it's time that I start protecting that, like my client meetings as well. All right, friend, with that, choose joy until joy chooses you. And I am so grateful that you're here, and I can't wait to see you next week. Bye for now.